Hello to everyone. Thank you for being there with us. We will talk about startup and Ukrainian startup, how to help them and so on. So let me introduce the panelists. So according to my list, we'll start with Uliana from USBA, for Ukrainian Business Association. Anna Cohen for D4 Tech, which you will introduce yourself a bit later. Evelina, who have signed this agreement. Arnaud and Constantine, who have been presenting interesting topic before. And myself, François Plevinsky, I'm a board member of USBA. I'm happy to moderate this panel. So very quickly, we have only one hour to discuss all the topics. So I will suggest that Uliana, you will present what is the USBA Association with short slides and maybe yourself if you want to.
All right, so thank you so much. So today I'm going to present Ukrainian Swiss Business Association and some facts from the Swiss startup ecosystem and how it's relevant to our association. So first of all, I would like to start that, of course, Switzerland, as you already experienced and may know, that is a very small country. Despite this, it has a truly vibrant startup ecosystem. So on this slide, you can see that almost 250 actors in a map in the Swiss startup ecosystem, including incubators, accelerators, different NGOs, associations, and also VCs. We, as a Ukrainian Swiss Business Association, we aim to be a part of this map and of this Swiss ecosystem, of course, in order to promote Ukrainian startups and help them to achieve and scale up, and of course, to be present more in that field. Moving forward to the next slide, Switzerland is decentralized. So are investments and innovation sectors. Therefore, we are uniquely positioned, being located in Switzerland, to support, to promote Ukrainian startups in navigating the Swiss ecosystem. So this is, you can see a recent report of venture capitals from 2023. This is a report from different cantons and different sectors which are Switzerland famous for, and its investments, of course, are going to biotech, ICT, fintech, medtech, healthcare, of course, and other products and startups. I have often been asked, so how to enter Swiss market, right? It's a very easy question, and I would say that at the very, very beginning, you need to find a partner. So in my experience, it's best to have a local partner, a partner who can provide or tell what is the best area or what is the best city, who can be the best for your upcoming partnership in that area. Universities in Switzerland are amazing locations, or like places where you can see, you can start your business or scale your startup. So there are plenty of accelerators or innovation hubs at the universities. So this is just one example. This is WISH Zurich, if I'm spelling it correct. This is an accelerator program between University of Zurich and University ETH, what is a Polytechnic University in Switzerland, located in Zurich. Finally, a couple words about Ukrainian Swiss Business Association. So we are present in Zurich, Lugano, Geneva, and Kiev, and we recently created startup committee, which I'm happy to lead. And I welcome you to join a committee or to become a member or become a partner. We plan a lot, and we will plan a lot to do For example, in upcoming year, we will have an event in November, Startups Nights. So there is a lot of events dedicated to startups in Switzerland, but for instance, there is one very important because it's the biggest one. It's called Startup Nights. It's happening in November in Winterthur, and association is a nice partner, and we are discussing now the boost of Ukrainian startups and possibility of Ukrainian founders and co-founders to take part in panel discussions. Why it's important? Because it will happen the first time in Switzerland. No one conference before never organized a boost, especially for Ukrainian startups. So I'm happy to announce this today on the stage. And that's all from my side. So please reach out to me and join the association. Thank you.
So now I will ask Evelina to introduce USF, and in short words, if you want to say something about you, of course, please.
Thanks a lot. So, dear all, I'm happy to welcome you today, and thanks for invitation. Today I represent the Ukrainian Startup Fund. We are actually one-of-a-kind governmental implementing agency aiming to support the Ukrainian startups in Ukraine, but also the boost and to drive the ecosystem development in our country together with all the international partners from all over the world. So our main mission is to support Ukrainian startups, not only with funding, but also by providing all the other opportunities, non-financial opportunities, ecosystem driving, etc., with our partners. And a few words about actually our fund. So in almost 3 years of our activities, we have already supported almost 300 startups, Ukrainian founders, for more than $8 million. So, which means that it is the only one-of-a-kind governmental institution, because we are working under the umbrella of the Ministry of Digital Transformation in Ukraine. And it's non-equity grant, it's non-refundable support to boost their activities. Because we actually think that the early stage startups need support most of all. So it's 25 and 50K grants for pre-seed and seed stages only. But to tell more about the ecosystem in Ukraine generally, we have to say and to remember that our country is living very hard times, and currently, as the war, full-scale war started, we decided to focus on military tech industries. So we launched our tailor-made dual-use program. It's grants for 5 crucial industries in Ukraine. It's defense, reconstruction, healthcare, education, and also cybersecurity. But moreover, we are now really focused on international development of the ecosystem, driving more and more opportunities for our startups with a good international players. For instance, with European Innovation Council, with the European Institute of Innovations and Technologies. So as governmental fund, we are really flexible in providing more and more opportunities, different co-investment programs, matchmaking programs, and we can do it easily because we have our one-of-a-kind portal, which is a really tailor-made CRM system, which allows us to have the biggest database of startups in Ukraine. So if you are interested, for instance, in any cooperation with us, or to receive some more information about the Ukrainian startups, we can easily help you with that. Moreover, we are focused in innovative voucher program, which allows the Ukrainian teams to go all over the world under the Ukrainian flag, under the official delegation from our country. So it was recently Web Summit in Rio, it was delegations in CES in Las Vegas, TechCrunch in San Francisco, and we are currently preparing for the London Tech Week. So I wish I will meet you here. And our main function there is to actually bring together the most promising startups from Ukraine that can really represent our country, demonstrate the biggest resilience, etc., and go there to demonstrate their products, to demonstrate our country, and bring more investments, bring more customers, etc. Also important to mention that as we are now more focused to boost our victory, we have launched the Brave One Tech Cluster. It's the first defense tech cluster in our country. So it's like one-stop shop for the military, volunteers, innovations, and all the militaries who are working with tech. So it's cybersecurity, and it's together with the core ministries of our country, and together with the private stakeholders, international and national. So if you are interested in boosting the military tech solutions or dual-use solutions that can be helpful for not only our country, but also for your defense tech, of course, you can collaborate. It's the separate website, separate platform where you can also apply your information about you and share your expertise or provide some interesting solutions that can help not only us, but also international cooperation generally. And just a few words about the ecosystem in Ukraine as for now. Of course, you see how resilient it is, but we also have a lot of challenges, and we have to mention that and to emphasize on the call to action. So first of all, the challenge is about the funding opportunities. We have made the survey together with Emerging Europe and Tech Ukraine, which told that 9 of 10 startups in Ukraine need additional investments. So of course, funding is important. Then it's of course challenge about the relocation, about the employees laid off in our country, because a lot of companies had to be relocated and female founders had to be relocated to save their lives, to save their business there. So of course it's about the funding and it's about the opportunities to have good conditions to keep working in Ukraine. And to say in generally, in Ukraine there are just like 1,500 startups operating. So we have good database of them. But also if you are interested in any kind of cooperation with our fund or with any of other stakeholders, we can represent it to you, to each other. So I'm also open to the cooperation, and thanks a lot again. If you will have any comments or decisions how to collaborate, you can also just require me. So thanks.
I have a question actually. I'm sorry. Which event did you like the most from everything you've attended over the past year? Just
so
curious.
You mean delegations, yes?
Yeah.
I believe it's Web Summit in Lisbon, because it is that kind of delegation where all the city is living there, is living in this atmosphere of the delegation. So if we talk about TechCrunch in San Francisco, it's just small exhibition zone and the city is living their own lives, not focusing really on the tech delegation. But Web Summit in Lisbon is really so atmosphere, so yeah.
And which events do you plan to attend in the future, in the nearest future maybe? Somehow?
Yeah, so we have London Tech Week in the nearest future, Collision in Canada, also in June, Viva Tech in June in Paris, maybe in Luxembourg we are currently also preparing. Then from this September it's again preparation for the Web Summit in Lisbon. So it's generally about 10 or 12 delegations in a year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you. And talking about Luxembourg, maybe Arnaud, you can introduce what you are doing, what is Luxembourgish Chamber of Commerce, Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce, maybe. Maybe you have one slide we can show now.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thanks to Ukrainian Swiss Business Association and Juliana who invite us in the frame of making more synergies between European countries to support technology and startup from Ukraine to be more landed in Europe. So yeah, so I'm Arnaud Lumet. I'm French living in Luxembourg, and I'm representing the Luxembourg Ukraine Chamber of Commerce, and I'm in charge of tech and innovation for this Chamber of Commerce. So yeah, the slide, just one slide maybe to show. I tried to put everything in one slide and to avoid a lot of information. But,
Tell us more.
yes, so this is the slide I made. So it's very, what to say, it's very small information, but very important. So I made one overview of the ecosystem, which is like more or less 500 startups. So for people who doesn't know Luxembourg, it's 650,000 people living there, and the size of the Luxembourg is more or less 16 times less than Swiss. But still, there is a lot of the government for Luxembourg is making a lot of efforts to build a stronger startup and tech ecosystem. So we have startups in Luxembourg are more like fintech or cybersecurity, and also there is 15 incubation. So, but I will not go to the details. And then the specificities of Luxembourg, they made some specificities about space resources. So they create a program with one of the biggest satellite company in Luxembourg, SES Astra. And then they have also digital embassy. So they are having the Estonia e-embassy. Estonia is putting data in Luxembourg with the e-embassy. And they create this high performance computer and big data. And also they create also cybersecurity and blockchain with InfraChain was linked to the incubator of fintech. And then also opportunities. Luxembourg is open doors to globally to any kind of startups worldwide, and they have some acceleration program, but I will not get into the details. So that's it from my side.
Thank you, Arnaud. So maybe Anna, you can present yourself and your business in Denmark, please.
I think you said it wrong, actually. It's DK Tech for Ukraine. Just kidding. No.
Sorry.
Anyway, I'm Anna, so I represent Danish and Nordic ecosystem here. We help Ukrainian startups a lot. We also help to find jobs in startups in Denmark. We do lots of events. We've done the first Danish-Ukrainian Tech Summit recently, and we're going to do a second one in September. And I invite you all as speakers, as attendees, as guests, and there will be more information available. So if you're looking for any contacts in the Nordic region, come over. Thank you.
So thank you, Anna. Konstantin, you have been presenting your project and so on during 30 minutes, but I will ask you to be the witness of the panel discussion, and you can interact, of course, anytime when we start the discussion now, because now we have made a presentation. My plan, and we will follow my plan, is just to give an overview of Ukrainian startup. And I think that Evelina is the person to introduce this now, going more into details during your introduction. So please, Evelina.
Yeah, so regarding the Ukrainian startups, yes. And the ecosystem challenges, sure, as I mentioned before, Ukrainian startups actually demonstrated not only resilience to all the other people in the world tech ecosystem, but also the flexibility, being adaptable to the new reality in our world. And of course, if we are talking now as more than 1 year of the war is constantly going on, we can see that the challenges were a little bit shifted, because for the first days, for the first months, startups were thinking on what they have to do, where they should run or keep going on Ukraine or not, because there were no clear vision of the future. But as for today, we can see that people become really more and more brave, more and more clear about what they are going to do to stay in our country. And our mission as the stakeholder, one of the most important stakeholders in our country, is to make all these conditions to keep them going doing business, growing in Ukraine, to make more and more successful stories. Because I believe everybody know about the such important startups and such popular in all over the world, such as Grammarly, Riddle, PetCube. These world-known names and brands are really came from Ukraine. So it's our proud and really, I believe, success that currently they are not only operating in world-known countries, have offices in Silicon Valley and Ukraine and Kiev, but also they support Ukrainians. They donate to the army enormous sum of money, and it's really important that we have to make these successful stories, even despite all the challenges that we have now. Also one of the important things to mention is the, of course, relocation problem. So and you know that there are a lot of Ukrainians currently abroad and doing their business here. So of course my recommendation is to believe in them, just employ, keep them growing, even being abroad, they are really strong enough to build their own business here. So it's my call to action to support them whenever they are here. And of course, our mission is to keep them growing in our country. Regarding the stakeholders, actually in Ukraine there are more than 20 R&D offices such as Apple, Samsung, and many, many other tech giants that are operating in Kiev, most of them. And despite of all these challenges, they keep operating, which is really supportful to us. But which also means that we need to promote the ecosystem in Ukraine now to boost the development, to make more and more these centers to be opened. And also we have exciting news, and I think Arno can also elaborate on that, that just recently European Innovation Council announced that consortium together with Ukrainian Startup Fund and other stakeholders received a really big boost of support. It's a grant with up to 20 million euros to support deep tech startups in Ukraine. So it's our big mission and goal. Yeah, let's applaud, please. It's hard work for all of us. It was 1 year of work, of negotiations to bring the biggest and the most important stakeholders, international and from Ukraine, to win this consortium to demonstrate that Ukraine is ready to be a tech hub for a lot of deep tech startups, so that we can unite scientists, we can unite innovators and drive the ecosystem. So I think that the main message from me on this issue, but I believe Arno can also elaborate on this as Lux Innovation also.
No, it's just that Lux Innovation, which is the national agency of Luxembourg, is part of this consortium. So it's part of this, I would say, yeah, it's part of this project. So it's very, very interesting for us to see how it will be and how we will see how Luxembourg also can be part with other stakeholders from Poland and all over Europe, developing tech, deep tech of Ukraine startups.
Okay, we'd like to emphasize a bit on the SWOT analysis. If you have strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, what kind of things do you think in the panel that should be emphasized? What are the really opportunities now for Ukrainian startup? And later on we will see how to go through these difficulties and take opportunities.
So before going into that question, and it kind of aligns in that question as well, is one of the aspects of Ukrainian startups is definitely the difficulty of remote working and access to the resources, which are not able to do that now during the war. And I want to ask Arnaud regarding, you said you have the incubator, and how many Ukrainian startups have gone into the incubator since the war started? And what's their way of operating? Are they doing this in a remote fashion? Or maybe somewhere else, and we can go into the discussion of strengths with SWOT analysis of this.
So yeah, so in Luxembourg, because I know about Luxembourg, it's about, I know that there were a few success stories of Ukrainian startup already, but there were, some of them were even before the war. So there is this fintech called Unicorn Nest, which is in Luxembourg, by the way. So they are making the connection between VCs and startups, for example. And, but after the war, now, last year we raised some projects where we raised money for startups. And in the meantime, we received a lot of demands regarding Luxembourg. I received like maybe 10 demands of startups who are interested in Luxembourg. But every time I'm trying to be very clear and to give a very good insight about why Luxembourg is good or not for your startup, and then we try to help them so far. But we didn't go to the full process. I mean, I didn't finish the process. I didn't incubate one Ukrainian startup so far. But I hope that it will change. Also in June we will have a big event, so with some startup coming from Ukraine, and then maybe that's I don't know if I answered the question.
Very interesting. No, you've answered it completely. Thank you.
If I may add on the scene of Switzerland, so we do have successful stories as being working for Kickstart Innovations. This is a Swiss startup accelerator. And last year, we signed a MOU with City of Zurich with the startup Solar Gaps. Solar Gaps, this is a Ukrainian startup being on the market for, I think, 7+ years. And they have been operating in US, in LA, in Europe. And this is a first MOU, so they will develop MVP, and probably I believe they will sign a contract later with the City of Zurich. I think it's a serious partner, and after a successful project with such a partner, it's of course nice to scale up in the whole Switzerland. But also here, it's also disadvantages of the Swiss startup ecosystem, that not all accelerators are accepting Swiss-based startups, or they are accepting Swiss-based startups, but not outside Switzerland startups. Like this was, of course, unique chance because this accelerator is international, but for some stakeholders from Switzerland who are supporting startups like big companies like AXA, Migros, Coop, Swisscom, Swiss Post, and so on. So some of them put criteria that it should be only Swiss-based startup. So this is also like make us think how we can discuss on this point, how we can elaborate to make it wider and to prove that Ukrainians' ideas, products can be easily used in Switzerland, and of course creating them with businesses and MVPs and so on.
Yeah, I guess that's an important aspect of loosening the bureaucracy for the Ukrainian startups to be able to enjoy the benefits and the help and the resources and the knowledge that the European Union, Swiss, Luxembourg, and your foundations are offering.
It's also a question of legislation, right? Because here it's like if you are talking about Swiss healthcare, like biotech, medtech, so there are super strict rules. I would happy to promote some accelerators here from that stage, but in my conversation I can say that it's only Swiss-based startups they are accepting, unfortunately at the moment. Not all of them, but for the very early stage and next stage, so it's only Swiss-based. But also they are like the positivity of this, that they are happy to think startups from like spin-offs of the ETH, École Polytechnique à Lausanne, or other big universities in Zurich. So it could be a chance for Ukrainians who are now based in Switzerland, who are temporarily displaced people, to use this opportunity, some programs at the universities, and then be a co-founder, founder of the startup later.
And I also want to add here about the accelerators. Actually, in our fund, we have also one of our activity is an acceleration program, which was suspended as the full-scale war started. But we have our accredited accelerators. It's 11 of them. For instance, and most of them are international. So it's Startup Wise Guys, it's Numa, EO Business Incubator, etc. And they were operating successfully with Ukrainian startups. We have organized a lot of batches for them, and we have just approximately 80 alumni of these programs. But as the full-scale war started, we have currently suspended this program and integrated it to our dual-use grant support. So now startup can receive in this 35K grant, 25 for their operation and 10K for the acceleration. So they can choose to whatever accelerator they can go and bring some good knowledge, mentor support, etc. to boost their product.
Very interesting.
I mean, I relate to everything which is discussed here. I can just tell that in Denmark there's lots of impact investments because we have like UN headquarters, and Danish government is going to give some funding soon, but it's going to be announced in a couple of months. And there will be some opportunities for Ukrainian startups as well, because there's a big grant being given by Danish government to Ukraine. Most of it goes to military, but there's a big chunk which will be given to businesses, startups, tech, and everything supporting this.
I've got a naive question. Maybe if Swiss government supports new companies, new startups, and so on, they will ask to have a Swiss-based company and so on. Can we imagine that we have a spin-off of a Ukrainian startup with a binding agreement? So you have an antenna in Ukraine, one antenna in Switzerland, one of a canton. That's amazing. We have 22, so it's okay. Do you think that it's one possibility to have a win-win situation with a really strong bridge between the two entities and to develop this business that way?
Well, it's a good question, actually. I was thinking about it. Once I went to a conference in Zug, canton, German-speaking, very strict, and there were startups in health tech and smart cities, and 8 of them were pitching. And I talked to all founders of the 8 startups, and 5 out of 8 were somehow connected to Ukraine. And it was in February. I was surprised because I was like thinking, okay, if it's like we are talking about it or if it's really happening, right? And I say how they were connected. So one of them has already entity in Ukraine, or like a department, R&D department, or engineering departments, not outsourcing, but the people who are working with the whole like permanent contract in Ukraine. Another one is looking for scholarships, like for people who can join him for a few months in Switzerland, but he's looking particularly for Ukrainians. So he was asking me, like, I would love to give such opportunity for Ukrainians who are like now in those universities, who just recently moved or have some experience or very less experience. And I think it's a great opportunity because when you join a Swiss startup and then either you stay in Switzerland or you back to Ukraine or you move to another country, but you have this experience. And also Switzerland is famous for this Swiss brand, you know, saying in CV, oh, I was working with that startup. It's really can make sense.
I think that this morning we have heard about the dean of Bern High School was proposing exactly this, hosting students, keeping them on board in Bern or in another high school in Switzerland, keep them for a year later after they finish their diploma to start a business, and then they can go back and the bridge is linked. And so I think that there's something that will be announced that has been started in Bern, but I think they will announce some new program soon. Okay.
But also on behalf of the Swiss Business Association, I think we can lobby a bit on that point.
That's our job.
Yeah, I would love to do this and like really, like as you just mentioned, to give funds not only for Swiss-based startups, right? And funds will go directly to Ukrainian startups. It's like a dream or a aim what I would like to achieve in years future. So let's see if it's going to happen. So
yes, any other comments? What are the real opportunities that you are seeing? You were talking about defense industry. It's obvious. Do you have something in mind? You have mentioned reconstruction and so on. Is it really for startup or is it for large companies? And where do you think that there's some room for very small and new companies?
Yes, we support infrastructure reconstruction startups via our dual use support program. And yes, as we can see, most of them are really on the early stages, but at least it's governmental support which we can give to them. Of course, we would like to bring more and more investment in this sector from the international players, and if they are interested in that startup which we support, we usually then announce about that, sharing all the information to the website, to our social media, so that investors can see it and become more interested in that, so that we can make the intro to each other and they start cooperating, making some success stories, etc. And usually some corporations, for instance, are sending emails to us with the request to match them with relevant startups from Ukraine, from our database that have already went through the compliance expert evaluation, so they are really relevant ones for them, and we just match them together and they started to cooperate, because these corporations can give them much more than we can give them. So that's how it works.
So they see some possibilities. I've got another question about, do you have conditions to support startups, like going to sustainability, green energy, okay, some criteria that you will favor some of the, if we rebuild something, it's better to do something good from the beginning instead of reproducing what has been done decades ago. So in your way of thinking in USF, but in also other platforms, do you have some criteria?
Yes, yeah, we have some criteria for the entities, for the each of the programs. For instance, when it was regarding sustainability, when it was the request from the European Institute of Innovations and Technologies, they have the direct request from the raw materials track to find the relevant teams from Ukraine that can be good at sustainability, raw materials, recycling, and exploration, mining, etc. And we were coordinating all that opportunities together with the relevant stakeholders from Ukraine, plus international ones, and find the most relevant teams from Ukraine. Scientists, we went through all the universities in our country together with the Ministry of Education and Science in Ukraine. We gathered together all the startups, innovators in that industry to help actually to match them with the opportunities from the Europe and their initiatives. And they supported them with some grant support and etc. So it usually works like that, yeah.
May I add something? Well, I think everyone knows or follows, I hope follows those UN sustainability goals. There are 17 goals which are extremely important and crucial in the everyday life in startup scene. Of course, if you're, like, there are some accelerators or programs who are really focused on such of them, like some of goals, or like if you have this and if your startup are going sustainable, that's of course like a green goal, so you really have more chances to achieve results or receive funding and so on. Another opportunity which I would like to talk, there is, so in Switzerland, there are ventures who are there are companies who are supporting startups in terms of creating their ventures overseas in their companies. For example, a Swiss Post has their own venture, or a Migros. And it was, for me, totally surprising because, for example, Migros and Coop, it's like food markets, known in Switzerland, right? And they are like having their own VC who are support innovations and startups. Furthermore, they support also accelerators. And you can do innovation in Switzerland in two ways. So either you create department or VC, what's a lot of money. I mean, the salary of Swiss employee yearly can be from 80,000 per year to 120,000. So imagine department, so it easily can go from 1 million and of course more and more. And this will be the way how you can deliver innovation within your company. Or you can support accelerator or incubator program paying annual fee, like a partnership fee. I don't know, it's starting in different accelerators, starting from 50,000 K per year, depends, or 200, $500,000 even. But then if you are supporting in such way accelerator, you can have a bunch of startup, like really the best of the best in Europe or world, like who are matching your criteria and with whom you can start to develop MVP. So for example, the Kickstart innovation is working in this way. So we have partners, and of course we have some criteria which we are trying to match during the scouting for startups, and then we are having some bunch of startups, and of course after acceleration, like 5 or few, I don't know how much, depends, will sign a memorandum and develop a MVP for later. And of course this is a boost of innovation, and this is a way how you can do innovation in Switzerland, for example. I know that this is also happening in Ukraine. I moved to Switzerland 5 years ago, but my last project in Ukraine, it was creating an incubator of startups at Ukrzaliznytsia. So I did this in 1991, and it was marvelous time because I think it was the first incubator of startups was Ukrzaliznytsia. We chose 80 startups, and then 10 of them went into incubation period, and with 5 of them we signed MOUs. It was amazing in 2017 to see like how startups could and how the new ideas could really help, and it was dedicated to Ukrainian drivers, and it was dedicated to the passenger transportation, cargo transportation, to monitoring, and it was fantastic. So some companies in Ukraine who are doing this, I think it's also Kyivstar who is supporting, and DTech has academy. Yes. So I think it's amazing way of innovation.
Yes, it's usually they work like this. They are trying to, of course, all of these big corporations that have offices in Ukraine, usually headquarters in Kyiv, they have their like innovation department, and regional managers from this department, innovation managers, they are generating all these opportunities. For instance, with DTech, we have also worked together on the innovation solutions from Ukrainian startups at the energy sector. So they were interested in supporting Ukrainian startups in this industry, and we, as a implementing point of the entry point for the ecosystem startups, we have gathered all the most relevant startups from our database together with the experts from DTech, and matchmaking events organized together with them. So it's like 3 of them then signed also the MOU and started cooperation just with the DTech one-to-one. So it's a lot of examples of such a cooperation. And Glovo, for instance, a headquarter from Barcelona, requested to us that they want to support Ukrainian startups. And just in few days, when I arrived back to Kyiv, we organized a big event for 20 startups, and also Glovo representatives are traveling to Kyiv. And we make this event in shelter because it's safety measures, but still we have great shelters now with all the technical solutions. And there will be a pitching sessions, and the most relevant startups will receive funding, will receive up to 35K euros, and also the internship fully covered, all the expenses for the internship in Glovo in Barcelona. So any company which is interested to support Ukrainians, to boost their awareness in Ukraine, to promote itself, they can contact us, and we will organize anything that they want. So that's all.
That's fascinating that the pitching session is happening in the shelter. That is absolutely phenomenal.
Konstantin, you have another experience in Europe to bridge Ukrainian people with some You have been traveling around the world, so maybe you have another view on that.
No, I probably don't have another view on that. I've had many international businesses, some which are only 100% Ukrainian owned, some which had American partners or European partners, and it's always a mix of resources and knowledge. And I think the wider the bridge is with the EU or with the States, the more resources of all kinds that you can have coming towards your startup, for your partners. And I don't have much to add. I completely agree with everything that's been said. So thank you.
So,
I think
okay.
I also wanted to add that in Denmark, every big company has like a small startup hub. So we have like Maersk, we have Danske Bank, we have Nordea, we have Arla Foods. I don't know, it's just really huge in supporting innovation. I wish it could be the same, you know, back home.
No specific Ukrainian program with this?
Well, they're open to everyone, so it's not necessarily focusing on Ukrainian startups, but anyone can join. There's lots of programs for it. There's also DTU, Danish Technical University, and they supported some programs for Ukrainian startups in the past, so they're quite open for Ukrainians. If you're an early kind of starting journey, I think you should contact DTU as well. They have a special hub there for startups.
And your organization is there to promote the Ukrainian project?
Yeah, we are also going to open physical hub end of summer, early September. We received some funding for this. I can't give you the kind of launch date yet because we only learned about it recently, but we are going to have a 1,500 square meter place in the center of Copenhagen. So I'm quite looking forward to inviting you there next time.
It's a huge place.
Yeah,
what are your plans for it?
Wow, lots of plans, huge, you know, for startups, for innovations. We're going to do lots of events. We're going to invite speakers. And also we've been doing many courses for Ukrainian refugees on how to integrate in Denmark, you know, how to learn the language, business culture and everything. So we're going to continue on this.
I think we should promote it in our actually ecosystem in Ukraine because it's really a great opportunity.
It's going to be huge.
Thank you.
And you can say also that Carlsberg will sponsor,
Yeah.
which is super for startups.
Tuborg beer, it's a Danish beer.
One of the most, one of the best beer in the world. If you travel to Copenhagen, you can see.
I'm quite tired of this beer in Denmark, you know. I prefer Belgian or French now.
So you escaped Denmark to go for a beer, and now you're in Switzerland, so fine.
Yeah.
I would also ask you more. Danish ecosystem, startup ecosystem and innovation are really having a very nice brand in the world. And I think, can you elaborate more on this? Like, what are the trends, like sustainability, like smart cities also in some
yeah, you name it. I mean, sustainability is number one. I'd say if you're looking for green energy and stuff like this, that's Denmark. It's very big. So more like latest trends in innovation. But yeah, I'd say green and impact is number one.
But it should be in Copenhagen, or it's decentralized as in Switzerland we saw earlier?
All over Denmark, really, like Copenhagen as a capital. You can go to Jutland as well. Sweden is less so. Copenhagen is more kind of concentrated. So I'd say, yes, you should start with Copenhagen. And also go to Tech Barbecue, which happens every year. I believe Evelina was there as well.
Yeah, it was last, actually,
September.
And it was totally free of cost for us. And it's a great also gesture of support when a lot of international partners that are actual organizers of such exhibitions proposed to us with the request that please select Ukrainian startups and we will do everything free of cost, because some of the exhibitions they are making discounts, but a lot of them are proposing free, and that's amazing. And in September we will try it again to do so. Yeah.
So thank you. Maybe we are going for some conclusion, but before that, what kind of advices you would give to startups from Ukraine? What they must have? What kind of things they should do or should not do? From your opinion, because you have lived in different parts of the world, and you can see differences, cultural business culture, I would say. What kind of things you should give as an advice for them, and maybe what kind of things you say to investors that would be in this forum to say, please come and help us. Who starts?
And also, if maybe some audience has questions, so maybe if I don't know if there is a possibility, so probably, yeah. I have.
That was my next
yeah.
point was, do you have any question? But
all right, sorry. So to summarize, well, at Swiss accelerators, it's like they are happy to see startups with female founder, startup who follow SDGs, as I mentioned, sustainable goals from United Nations. Startups who already have MVP or at least product. At the very early stage, you see a team and you question a lot your team, who are they, what's their background, how you know each other, and if the problem will happen or you will be lack of money, so how you will solve this. If it will be stress and you will just go home and say, okay, startup is over, or you really like gonna fight for this. And I think, yeah, invest in Ukraine and support, promote Ukrainian startups. And I'm happy to do this in Switzerland.
Thank you. And also to add as a conclusion, actually Ukraine is known worldwide for the greatest tech talent pool. You know, engineers in Ukraine are one of the best and proven that to all over the world, even before the full-scale war. And now also it's important as the call to action to the investors, to the stakeholders, to support them, to give them jobs opportunities, to give them funding opportunities, because they will do, I believe, everything. They are really catching all these opportunities now. How can they drive their business, because they are, most of them are relocated, or they have no other ideas how to manage the business because they have no more even a house or a family member. So of course you have to support at least what you can provide to them. They will be really grateful and thankful, and it will come back to all of you with a lot of more and more times more back. So of course invest in Ukraine, support Ukraine, and glory to Ukraine. Thank you.
I wanted to add on that, sorry Arnaud.
No, go ahead.
I want to add on that note, having run a few amounts and starting and run a few amount of international businesses and having some that failed as being an entrepreneur. I think the ones that succeed the most is when your team altogether has a crystal clear vision of where they're going, and also having what our very strong Ukrainian trait is, it's perseverance and resilience. And just following that vision, clarity, no matter of how sidetracked you can get by sometimes investors coming in and offering money, but they want the vision to be a little bit different. That's also something that's very important to always keep in your mind, that if you know where you're going and you have the correct support, just follow the correct path and don't get sidetracked.
No, I just wanted to say, yeah, of course I can say that a Ukrainian startup can apply for acceleration program, get some grants, equity free, whatever. There is many VCs who are now interested in Luxembourg, blah, blah, blah. And then there is also EIB and EIF. But despite all of this, what I really want to say is that I would like to see like collaboration between the different ecosystem that we are representing in order to bring the best support for Ukraine, which is a country in war so far. So it's not only about investing in equity, it's also about winning the war and give them the best possibility and opportunities for Ukrainian tech ecosystem.
We agree on that. So before thanks the speakers, do you have any questions or comments?
So I would like to thank you for your great panel. It's really so interesting to hear about the news and what is happening. And my name is Veronica. I work in the law firm Yuskutum, which is based in Kiev, and we are an innovative law firm. We have a lot of startup clients, really a lot, and we have also investors. And we like to connect right people with each other. That's why my question will be, what crucial, because we talked a little bit, but what crucial events do you think this year will be where startups need to be present and investors can be interested in? So can you just remind us a little bit and tell some details about them? Thank you.
But this is in Europe or in the world? In the whole world, right?
Yeah, we talk about the whole world, but Europe maybe more nearby Ukraine and maybe easiest to come.
Like priority, yeah. Do you
Thanks a lot, Veronica, for your question. Actually, we also collaborated with the law firms. We were preparing different guides for Ukrainian startups on different legal questions and also with Juskutum. But yes, regarding the opportunities and international opportunities, I believe that the most important conferences where you can go and represent your own startup or idea is where the Ukrainian stand is represented, because they're usually a country stand, so where we are represented as Ukrainians and we have the cohort of officials, of embassy representative. You should go definitely there, because it's our actually mission together with the ministries, with the Ministry of Digital Transformation, to attend all the biggest conferences, and we announce about them in our social media, where we have a call for startups, please apply, or you can just contact us directly and we will see if we have any discounts on the entry tickets, etc., how we can help you to go there, because it's usually, it has more impact when you are as one delegation, one cohort from the country there, and we usually, of course, select the most professional, the most interesting and popular conferences. And in this year, we will go to, again, to the USA. It's usually 3 or 4 conferences. It's CES in Las Vegas, it's TechCrunch in
When? What month?
So CES, it's usually on January, first days. Then TechCrunch is in October, it's in San Francisco. Also, we have recently organized Select USA in Washington, and actually Ukrainian startup Let's Data, it calls, it won the competition of all the startups in Select USA in Washington. So it's great news also to share. And a lot of conferences in Europe, in Copenhagen, in Paris. London Tech Week will come just in recent weeks, in Collision, Canada, and we are trying to actually do as much as possible to cover all the biggest conferences. So contact us and we will, yes, help.
I will add something about this, talking about my experience. I have an engineering company and we are partnering with Ukrainian big companies or small companies, and we are participating together in B2B matchmaking events. And you have investors, you have large companies looking for new ideas, you have startups and so on, and that's an efficient way to do it. So there's also this partnership that you can come to USBA if you have, I'm in the French-speaking part of it, in Geneva. You have Zurich and Basel, or no, maybe
Lugano, Kiev, but it's fine.
Lugano and Singalen soon. And then there's also possibility to have direct interaction and partnership. But USBA can also propose partnership to one company, one startup to another company. That's a possibility. Not only conferences where you have a lot of speakers and like us. But
and also for those who cannot travel now, there are good conferences also in Ukraine. For instance, Lviv IT Arena. It's one of the biggest IT conference in our country. And we usually also, as the partners of this conference, we call the startups, we organize the pitching sessions, and there is a good place to visit and to meet investors, stakeholders, etc. So I also recommend this one.
Okay, thank you. So,
and some questions more, I think.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. Is it answering your question, I guess? Yeah. So, please.
Can you hear me? Awesome. Speakers, thank you so much for your opinion. It was quite interesting to know how you're going through due diligence. My question is about the social impact landscape in your accelerator programs, in your funding. Do you consider these projects? What are your criteria? Probably you can also talk with Konstantin because he's like doing the social impact product, and it's quite difficult sometimes to fundraise, especially when you provide tech solution to the industry that was not innovative for quite a long time.
C'est Konstantin.
I think that's probably more of a question to you as accelerators and incubators, as funds, as how is the, what percentage of funding goes to social impact and to nonprofit kind of initiatives?
I can say something. Is like Luxembourg, when they do some grants program, equity free, they do some different round every year. There is like 700 applications, and they take maybe 40 startups. And they do every time a thematic for each. So sometimes it's about sustainability as well. Like it was already. So they are giving the equity in priority to this sustainability, for example, or social impact, or health tech, or something like this. So.
We also check while we are open calls for the startups, we also check in their applications, not only their like plans for how they will raise the funding, etc. Also long-term plans, how will it be implemented in the not only near but the long-term future, and which roadmap they have, and how will it actually influence to the future. So it's also important to us, and the industries that we are covered are not only about tech, it's also about the lifestyle, about the all the other sustainable projects, etc. So it's usually about the impact, which is important criteria, and the jury member also emphasis on this one. And regarding the impact on the industry generally, we believe that while we support the startup, they can then give the job opportunities. They can, of course, implement some business ideas that can be good for the local citizens, for the local areas, plus for the country at all, because it's taxes, etc., etc. So it's usually about the positive impact.
Well, I think your startup is extremely interesting, and I like your presentation and also the idea behind. Well, I do not have so much experience with like NGO and all this, like with NGO I have, but not like in the startup area. Well, I think first thing what comes to my mind, of course, is grant programs. I don't know if you look at this or if it makes sense for such kind of projects, because of course it's NGO, and NGO, a startup who is supporting NGO, it's crucial, and especially nowadays in this situation and Russian invasion on Ukraine. So I think that could be the first thing, it's grants, and also EU. Well, I don't know Swiss grants, but of course I can ask and check. And I think there are special VCs who are concentrated on this, but I think there is no in Switzerland. I know one in German area. Well, sorry to say, but it's like Switzerland is very business-to-business commercial projects, but I think it's crucial to support such startups as you presented to us today, Konstantin. And I'm happy to look through and maybe come up with some like concrete ideas and funds to support this idea and startup.
Much gratitude.
I'm also in Luxembourg. They were a startup who were raising 1 million, and they made a social media for sustainability, and they managed to raise 1 million in Luxembourg with family office. They are Finnish founders, but I think in France as well there were a lot of Civitech. That's because I think Civitech were able to raise some money, and there were some incubators and a very successful story of Civitech, like Make.org, or like. That's maybe like Germany or France are more into this Civitech, I would say, or GovTech than Swiss or Luxembourg so far, because it's my impression, but yeah.
Thank you for your answer. I'm just going to have a very quick follow-up. You mentioned that you usually check the impact, so I'm quite curious. Usually if you want to achieve the global impact, it takes a long time, so your return on investment, in case it's like non-profit but a startup for non-profits, it takes quite a long time. What could be a possible justification for you for this startup to have this such a long-term investment? For example, you know that you're going to receive like first dividends revenue only in like more than a year, 2 years, but you understand the impact. So probably what else you check to make sure that you're going to invest regardless of the time it takes to come to the point when it's going to be profitable?
In our case, as a governmental fund, we actually do not think about profit and no commercial interest at all. So it's not about our case, because our mission is just to support with non-refundable and non-equity grants. It's a governmental program and it's all about the impact. We are happy to say and to share that only 2 of all the supported startups, it's almost 300 in Ukraine, did not stop their operations after our support. That's amazing, because we try to support only the strongest one, but it's again about the startups. It can be different stories, but then all the next, so every second startup that we supported received additional funding, and then of course VCs, they decide how to check, how to invest, etc. Because it's more about risks and etc. From our side, we just support them, the most promising ones that can contribute to our country in general. And we have no interest at all. So we have interest in taxes, in supporting the strongest startups that can then be successful. For instance, one of case is startup Osomic. Maybe you heard about them. And they won our pitch competition. And just in few days, they received the information that Y Combinator decided to give them a big amount of money and support. So they told us that thanks a lot for believing in us, but in that case, please contribute these grants to the other startup, because we do not need that anymore. So it usually works like that. We try to support the most promising one, but it's case by case. We have a lot of stories to share, so it's long time story. So thank you.
I think it's also a question of MVP. If you have already some kind of product, you have customer, or when you're like on that early stage, so you are looking for customer, or it's like really a need of such idea in the market, and if the idea fits the market, so I don't have so much experience as I already mentioned, but I would compare this with the health care startups, because you don't have a product, you cannot have a product for 2 years, 3, even 5 years. So investors are keeping invested because they believe, they understood that this is developing of the product, and you have few iterations of it, right? And it will come up in the market in few 5, even 9, 10 years. So I would maybe it's not the best analogy, but I think this is like some metrics when you are checking before you are considering to invest in startup or to support startup.
Governmental grants are also there to minimize the risk. So it exists in France, in Switzerland now. Now Switzerland is keeping a long program, adjustment program to support the companies and so on, which was not the case few years ago. Now we are adjusting. Swiss is very active in that field, so that's something to do when you have a long-term vision, I think. Let's thank the speakers again, and thank you for your participation.